So welcome to the ORD Survey Webinar number 2. We're currently talking about the mapping and point cloud workflows. I think I know everybody here, but just in case I don't, I'm John Rawlings, and I work in geometronics in the remote sensing group. And I've been down there for almost 2 years now, was previously up in Region 1 as one of the lead surveyors over the field and mapping group. So I've got a lot of experience doing base maps and DTMs, and I've gained a lot of experience dealing with ORD and terrains over the past year or so down in geometronics. So let's see if this goes to the next one. There it is. So last week we talked about the Bentley survey format, or SQLite as it's called, and how we can use that. We also talked about the zones and filters that we've set up and kind of how to use those. And we're going to go through all this again today as we're going through our edits. And we also talked about ways to organize our T files and our DGNs. So some data organization, depending if you're working by yourself or if you have multiple people working on a job and you're sharing files back and forth. And that's really where that Bentley survey format SQLite comes in. So this week, we're going to talk about the 3 types of linear features. We're going to talk about editing survey data from your Topo files in the field. We'll touch on lagging decorators because that was an issue that kept coming up during the initial ORD survey training, as people were noticing that when you had your decorators on, things slowed down quite a bit. And I have found a fix for that. We'll touch on drainage studies, and I know every region may do these a little differently. So we'll touch on that when I get there. And then we're also going to talk about modifying terrain boundaries, because this was something that came up during the initial ORD survey training, and I've discovered kind of a new way to create those boundaries that's very similar to the way that we did it with inroads and DTMs. And then I've got a whole list of other topics over here on the right-hand side. Get my laser pointer. Confidence points, inroads to ORD, using Descartes, which is now called reality modeling, using key-ins for our sections. All these topics I'm going to talk about eventually. Some of these will be next week. I'm not going to get to confidence points today for sure, or inroads to ORD. It's just going to be these topics, but we will get to these at some point. So it is important to understand that there are 3 different types of features in your survey data. So you have dynamic link features, you have point list features, and you also have graphical features. So dynamic link features are what you're going to have whenever you import field collected data from Infinity into your survey Fieldbook. You're going to get dynamic link features. They always have a linking code or a start or end, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on too, putting those end codes on things. And all the points must have the same field code. So all the points in a line must have, if it's a break line, they must be a BL1 or whatever that stringing ID is. And the collection order matters. So the order that you collect them is the order that it's going to come into the Fieldbook data, and you can't modify that. So the second type of features are point list features. Point list features do not have linking or start codes, and the field code can be different on the points that make up a linear feature. You can also rearrange the order of the points as you want. So if you look up in my top right image, I have red stars, and I think I figured out how to use this. Yeah, I have some red stars. Let me see if I can get it. I have red stars here and here. And notice those point numbers. So I've got 60436, 60437. And if I kept going, all of these would be in order. That's the way they were collected in the field. They have the start code on them. These are dynamic link features, or as it says in the pop-up, generated by link codes. There. Oh, well, that's how you draw a line. Not a very good one, but. So those are generated by link code. So the collection order matters. The point numbering matters as you go up or down, and they have to have that linking code. So pointless features, if I look down here in my lower right image, you can see that the point numbers are not sequential. So zooming into this, I've got a 51250 right there, and then a 51, get out of that, a 75041 on the next one, go up to the next one, 51251, and then a 75042 on that one. So you can see that the point numbers are not sequential, yet I have a line there that's all connected. So that is a point list feature. So let's talk about graphical features. So graphical features can be any graphical element. They do not have survey point features and subsequently do not have manipulators. So edits can be done with regular MicroStation commands such as modify element or break element and insert or delete vertices, but you do have some limitations on that and you have to pay attention to what you're doing. So one example of that is you could go in here. I've got a graphical feature that I brought into my survey fieldbook. Notice this creation type is graphic. I can go in and use my break element tool, break it right here. And if this line is going that direction, the second half of the line will be removed from that fieldbook. So it doesn't really have those many connections in there. So you really have some issues with using graphical elements. They can be used, but it's not the most recommended way to go about things. So graphical features are not associated with a separate data file. So one of the things is when you bring in data collected in the field, it's tagged as belonging to the file name used to import that data. So if you bring in data on TO2, all of those points and lines have a tag on them that that links them back to TO2. And if you notice in this, I have none of those tags. So it'd be right under this. Let me go back to this one. So if you notice, these are dynamic link and point list features, and all of these have a data file name in there. So this I know came from my Topo file T22, and this one came from T99. Go back to my graphical features. I don't have that in here, so it's not. It has nothing to attribute that to. In addition, when you add these to your fieldbook, if you have a complex chain, you must simplify the geometry. Otherwise, it's going to get messed up when it goes into your terrain, which it won't go into your terrain. So I'm going to demonstrate that when I jump into the demo here in a minute. Also, the three different types of features have a sort of hierarchy. So if you have a dynamic link feature, this is the context sensitive menu for a dynamic link feature. You can convert that dynamic link feature to a pointless feature, pointless linear feature, which you will do quite a bit. If you have a pointless feature, you can then convert that pointless feature to a graphic linear feature, which you likely won't do very often. And if you have a graphical feature in your survey fieldbook, your options are very limited. You could pretty much just transpose it or switch directions. So you cannot take a graphical element back up to a pointless feature or dynamic link feature. You can take a pointless feature to a dynamic link feature, but things get messy and I don't recommend doing it. Once you convert a dynamic link feature to a pointless feature, just leave it. So there's no real reason to go back to a dynamic link feature. It will still function the same in your terrain and in your survey fieldbook. So all of this matters because of editing and how you make edits. So a dynamic link feature has points. All the points are tied to that line so that the dynamic link linear features are tied to the points that they are composed of. So you edit your points to edit your line. So if you have a dynamic link feature and you just go in and edit the line and don't change the points, you're going to get things messed up. Another example of how this is impacting your edits, if you have two dynamic link features, they cannot be joined with the join tool because oftentimes they have different field code stringing IDs. So you may have a break line 1 in your topo file, and then your next break line that you collected was a break line 2. You cannot just go up and use this join command right here because it's a dynamic link feature, because it came in from your Infinity CSV file, and it's got those two different field codes in it, and the dynamic link field codes have to have all of the same field code on them. The dynamic link features must have all of the same field code on them. And then, of course, a graphic linear feature cannot be joined with a point list or dynamic link feature. So just a couple of quick examples on how this is all going to work together. I'm going to do a demo here, and we're going to work through some topo files and make some of these edits so you can kind of see how it all fits together. Before I do that, just to kind of touch on lagging decorators. So again, this came up a lot in the ORD survey training, the initial training we did, and that was whenever you had on the decorators, that temporary graphics that have your point ID, your field code, or your elevations or descriptions. If you had those on, sometimes ORD became a little sluggish whenever you were zooming in and out. So you can fix this, and I have done this on my machine and it seems to work. There is a setting in the backstage under your user preferences view options. You have a option to modify this update refresh. Our standard setting is a second, but if you're using decorators a lot and it's a large file and you're getting that sluggishness, you can go in and modify that update refresh value to something lower. I put mine at 0.3 and it seems to work pretty well. I haven't had any issues with that so far. So let's jump in, and I'm going to do a demo. So again, I'm going to work through some topo files here, and I'm going to work through the process that I talked about in the first webinar, where I'm creating a DGN, I'm creating a Fieldbook, a survey Fieldbook, and then I'm going to export an SQLite file for each topo file that I have. And then I'm going to create an all or merged or working base map file where I'm going to merge all those topo files into one so that you can kind of see that process in action. So I've already created my first file and it's TO2. TO1 had some non-topo data in it, so that's why it's with TO2. But I've created this just using the seed 3D file. So I'm going to drop down in and create a new Fieldbook. Again, you should be relatively familiar with doing this. I'm going to give it the same name as my topo file, which is TO2. So I have no data in here. I can fit my view. There's nothing in here. So I'm going to right click and import my file from Infinity. I can set my text import wizard to the Oregon DOT CSV file. And I'm going to select my first topo file that I'm going to use, TO2, and say open. It's going to import it. Think a little bit. It's not a huge file, but it's got some edits that we need to make. So first things first, last week we talked about zones and filters. So just to kind of show you how those can be used, right here I've got my filters drop down below my field books. Notice they're all off. I can turn them all on, turn them all off, things disappear, come on, what's going on? I'm going to leave them all off, and I'm going to turn off my field book for TO2. So let's say I wanted to see all of my control. So I can drop this down. Notice I've got another checkbox under this one that says Control All. I can select that, and all of my control is displayed. I can turn on my survey details, and I can right click on my filters and do show details. And it's going to show all of my control in my survey details that I have selected with this filter. The way we have this filter set up, I can go in and look at it and see. I can't do that with it checked. So I can see how that filter is set up. So we set up zones on all of our control points to equal 200. And that's how this filter is set up. So let me go back to that, show you show details. Notice the zone is all 200 on that, and I've got all my control in here. So I don't want this control in this topo file. I'm going to export it to a CSV file or text file that I can keep track of all the control, but I don't want all my control in here. It's already been checked in Infinity. I've checked all my backside checks and elevations. I know everything's good, and I'm not going to use this for anything else. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to export. Actually, I'm going to do a report on selected items. So I have a report on selected items. So all I did was right clicked in this left column with everything selected. Report on selected items brings up my report browser. I can select my CSV option for survey points table and do a file save as. And I'm going to go chooser 485 TO2. If I could type, make sure I select that as a text file. Save that. So now I exported all the strap points that were used. Go ahead and close that. I could go check to make sure I've got that. So I've got my text file there. So I know I've got the data in there if I needed it for anything. And then I could just delete these points because all of my topo files are going to have these control points. So we're going to get duplicate points in there. So there's no reason to have them in here. So I can do the same with my check shots. So my backside checks and my elevation shots, I can do the same thing. Select that filter, right click on filters headings, show details. It's all the backside checks. Again, I've already checked these in Infinity, so I don't need them. They're just going to get in the way. You could have also deleted them in Infinity if you didn't want them in here. So everything's off now. I can go turn my Fieldbook back on. So I've got my data in here. I don't have any control. I don't have any backside checks, which is what I want. And I'm going to start editing this file. So I would probably have the scan notes up next to me here, start at the top and work down through the points. I would have my all point features open. I would have my survey details going, start at the first one, 51001, EP1, and work through this, just kind of grooming the file, making sure everything had the right codes on it, making sure I had all my start codes in the right place, working that way. For this demonstration, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to kind of start at this lower left side and work my way this way, hitting some of these mistakes that we're going to fix. So the first thing I see is a bunch of confidence points here with some lines. So confidence points are point features and they should not have lines. So there's a hard way to fix it and there's an easy way to fix it. So I could just go delete this line, but then I'm still going to have issues with some of this other stuff over here. So I don't want to just delete that line. So I want to go edit the actual points. So somehow, I'm gonna undo that. Somehow in the field, we've got a start code on these confidence points. So very easily, I can go in here. I can select my confidence points all, right click, show details, open up my details, and I now have all my confidence points in my survey details. I know I don't want any start code on this. So I can quickly sort that linking code by descending, not ascending. And that puts every point feature that's a confidence point at the top with a start code. And I can just undo those and fix them very easily. So all I did was turn those start codes to none on the linking code. Notice since I edited the points, those lines disappeared because confidence points should not have a line. So there's a CMP here, a pipe right here that I want to make some edits to. Can't really see what's going on with this. I'm going to set up my geographic coordinate system. I've already set it. I know it's OCRS Columbia River East. And I'm going to use my aerial because I've never been to this site, maybe, to see what's going on with this. And in the notes they had, so it's a culvert going under the road. So in the notes they had a description on this point as shot at flow line, and then on this one they had a line only. So I'm going to go add those to these points. I'm going to turn off my aerial since I kind of see where I'm at and what's going on. So I can hover over this, go to my context sensitive menu, edit the point features that make up this line. It's 51087, 51088. I can go in and type a description in there. So this one was shot at flow line. And my next one was line only, and that may be important whenever I get other files where maybe they were able to shoot the flow line on the other side so I can see what's going on. So the other thing I can do to this, this data was collected actually a while ago, and we didn't have a thing known as attribute pairs. So we talked about attribute pairs in our original survey class. So I can go in and manually add those attribute pairs to these lines. So I've got two pipes here that I want to add these attribute pairs to. One of them is a CMP, and one of them is a CPI, so a concrete pipe. Pretty sure that's the only drainage I have in here. I can double check it. So I've got my drainage storm filter. I can go check my linear one. I can right click on this and do a show details, and it's going to pull up all those pipes that I have input in my file, in my survey field book. So I can go quickly add attribute pairs to both of these, the CMP and this concrete pipe. I can select the column top header, right click on it, hit edit, brings up an edit property value box, and I can go in and add these attribute pairs manually. So your attribute pairs are found in the back of your Open Roads survey manual that we had from that initial class. So it's type. And again, I'm typing in there and I'm hitting tab. And I've got two different ones, so I'm not going to input a type at this stage right here. I'm going to add my next one. This is diameter inch, tab, and they're both 18 inches. So I can tab that and hit accept and OK, and it puts them in there. And now I can go do these manually. If I know the first one is a CMP, I can go add that in there. And the benefit of doing this is for annotating these elements, if you want to annotate them easily. I know that this is the concrete pipe. So I've now done that. And these pipes aren't very long, so our annotations are going to look kind of ugly. But if I wanted to look at that real fast, I can do an element annotation, locate elements, right click to repeat, to right click to accept or to reset, and it puts those annotations on there rather than having to type in all that text on it. Get out of that. So I've got two generic points here that I want to add descriptions to. Let me jump into my all point features. I can go select my generic points. Again, there's only two. I know that they have the same description from my field notes. I can go edit this. They're 3 feet by blocking driveway. Put that on there. One of the benefits of doing these descriptions is I can toggle this on and it shows what they are. Notice I put this shot at flow line, and I thought I put line only on this one, but I did not. So I can go edit that real fast. So I can do the same thing with these fences. Yes, is there a question?
I'm just going to add, John, ideally, the field crew can put in descriptions by using the Leica annotations. Basically, all the notes that they put in will come in with the descriptions through the raw data.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So this is all old data, and I didn't go into their data and add the attribute pairs, but you can do it manually in here if you don't do it in the field. So just know that that's an option. And notice I also did on these CMPs, I added those attribute pairs to the line. So if you have a linear feature, you want to add the attribute pairs to the lines. So like these fences, I wouldn't go add attribute pairs to all the points, just to the line. So I could do the same thing on the fences. If I want to do all my fences, because I've got 3 fences here, I don't want to do them individually. I can just go in and add this attribute pair manually. And I think it's type. No, it's height. And maybe they have different heights. Maybe they have the same height. I'm going to say they all have the same one. And then type, I like to call them hog wire. And then I hit accept. And then whenever I can annotate that element if I would like. Reset to complete, and it puts it on there. I'm going to remove that. So another big one is for the trees. There's not a lot of trees in this file, but that can be a very tedious process. So I could go in here to my point features in my survey details and drill around till I found my trees. Where's my other tree? I guess I only have coniferous trees. But maybe if I add a deciduous tree or ornamental, could be challenging maybe. So we have a filter for all trees. Turn that filter off. Go to my trees, right click show details. Go open up my details dialog box. So I now have only my trees shown in my survey details. And I can do the same thing. I can go in and add an attribute pair in here. I can do this a couple different ways. Maybe I know I've got 10 trees that all have, they're all 6-inch firs. I can select those few trees and do the same thing. I can do it through the right clicking this menu here, edit selecting items, go to my attribute pairs, and add those features in there. So this is a type, they're firs, and my diameter inch is they're all 6 inches. Can accept that. And then let me go find one of those and annotate it so you can see what that does. So it puts the text there automatically, so I don't have to copy it. So pretty quick process. And you can go in here and edit these annotations or attribute pairs as you need. You can also do it through your pop-up menus over here. I go in this way. I can change things in here. All right, so those are the quick and easy edits. So what about dealing with these dynamic link features, point list features, and graphical features? So let me turn off all my filters. If you notice, my drainage disappeared because I turned off my drainage storm here. If I just turn this Fieldbook off and on again, it comes back. I can quickly turn off all my confidence points like so. So if I want to break this line, there was a note in the field notes that said, oh, we forgot to start a new line on this break line. So I want to edit that. Maybe I've been working in the field and it's Thursday afternoon and it's 95 degrees and I want to come in and process my data for the past 2 days. You can do it this way, just with the data you've been working with. So if I hover over this, this is try this again, generated by link codes. feature. So it's a dynamic link feature because it was brought in from my Infinity CSV file. Notice it's also got a field code of BL7. Let me do it this way. So it's got a field code of BL7. So I have tools up here under the edit command for breaking this. And I can do it. I can hover over this and it doesn't say element is not valid. So we'll see that in a little bit on some of these tools with element is not valid for this tool. But it's asking me to locate the linear feature. So I can left click on it. Now it's asking me to locate the point feature. So one of the things I didn't do is I want to turn on my decorators, turn on my names, and I just want to see the direction this line is going. So I got a 185, a 186, and I got a 187. So it's going this way. So the order you do this matters. So it's asking me to locate a point feature. So let's say I break it right here. Notice what it did is it placed another feature. Let's see, is it at the beginning of this one or at the end of this one? Well, I can check that real fast. If I hover over my context sensitive menu, go to my edit point features. There's my details. Try this again. There it is. So it added a point feature 1 at the end of that line. So if I go up here to 185, 186, and then this point feature 1. So I'm going to lose that 187 point that is also right there. If I decide I want to break this, you know, maybe I go down here and say, well, let me make that a start. So I'm losing that 187 point if I go up here and delete this point feature 1. So let me undo this. I'm back to this. So if I break it, locate my linear feature, locate my point feature, where I want to start that new line in the direction it is going, it does put that point feature there. I'm going to right click to get out. So if I go edit this point now, notice I still have my 187 up there, and this extra point I can just delete because I don't want it anymore. So I've just done it using the break command. So the other way to do that, go ahead and go back on that, is just to add a start code on this and add an end code on this one. So because these are both BL7 and they're dynamic link features, if there is another BL7 without a start code or an end code and it's got a higher number than this 51187, it's going to connect up to that. So maybe I have a T20 file that's got another BL7. You're going to get that line connecting up if you don't have this end on this line. So that's how you go about breaking these lines, these dynamic link lines. Here's another example. Maybe I want to join these two together, these two break lines. So I've got a join command. But notice when I hover over it, I get element not valid for this command. Go up to this one, element not valid for this command. So again, these are dynamic link features, and this one has a field code of BL8. Zoom into that. Field code of BL8. And this one has a field code of BL9. So because those have different field codes, I cannot join them together. There's a couple ways to handle that. There's two different ways. The first way is to select all the points using your edit point features. Here I've got my BL9 field code. It's got a start code. I can go up to this. I can right up to this field code column, right click on it, edit, and do a BL8. Say OK, remove that start code, and the lines automatically connect up. So now I've got them all on BL8. And this worked because I've got a higher number going after this last point. So let me undo that. The other method I could use is to convert these to point list features. So I can hover over it, go to my context sensitive menu, and convert to point list linear feature. Can do the same on this one. Convert to point list linear feature. And I can now use my join command to join these two together. Notice I don't get the element not valid for this tool. And it joins them up. I can go in and look at this point list features. Notice they have different field codes. So I got BL8. Did I lie to you? Did it convert them to BL all to BL8? Oh, they stayed BL8 because I didn't undo enough on the other one. So let me undo this again. Let me go back, manage those point features. I'm going to change these back to BL9 like they were prior to editing it. Generated by point list. This one is generated by link code, so I'm going to convert it to point list. They've got their different field codes. Again, I can turn on my decorators to see that. So I got a BL8 here and a BL9 there. I can go up and use this join command now since they are point list features. And it will join them up even though they have different field codes. So notice I have some BL8 and some BL9. And it strips the start codes from them. Again, you can go up and add an end code because if you have another file that comes in with a BL9 on there, it's going to try and connect that up. So you just have to be cognizant of that. And I think we're going to set up the, I know we're going to set up the Infinity template to automatically put those end codes at the end of your lines. So that's how I would go about joining these features. So the move command, you really shouldn't use it with topo data. I can show you how it works, but I would not recommend using it because you're really going to start corrupting your data if you do that. Not corrupting, but manipulating your data in a wrong way, probably. So all you can use it on is this entire line, and you can then snap it to a different place if you would like. Again, not recommended to use it. And transpose, I think we all know what transpose does. It just reverses the line. So on this guardrail, for instance, so I can get my aerial. So my road is right here. I know I want my post on the outside of that line. Go to transpose, it quickly does it. So what if I have a series of terrain points right here that I would like to turn into a break line? So what is the easiest way to go about doing that? So this particular scenario, I've got 51409, I've got 410, 411, and 412. So the easiest in this case is to select all of those using my element selector. And I can go in and edit that field code. I want to make it a break line. I'm going to say a break line 50 with a kind of a unique stringing ID. Hit enter. It changes them. And then on this first one, get my element selector in here. I can go put a start code on that. And it automatically creates that break line. I'm going to undo that. So the other thing I can do is create a point list feature out of these. So to do that, I can right click on my linear features. I can do a new. And this is very similar to what I always called the bow and arrow tool, or edit feature points in your inroads tool set. So I can add a group of points here. And on this first one, I can start at the beginning and left click on this. It looks like a view window to me. Select that point, accept it. Do my next one, select that point, accept it. It starts a line. It shows you the direction. And select that point, accept it. Select that point, accept it. I made one too many. I'm going to delete that one. If I'm satisfied with this, I can hit accept. And it's going to put a line in here on the default field code. But I can easily go in and change that field code to my break line 50. And it automatically creates that. And it keeps the original terrain points that were used there. So you may want that, you may not. I kind of prefer the original method that I did, where I just converted those all to break lines and then modified things using the start command. So what else can I do to this? The other thing, we've got these edit linear point options. So we've got append, move along, insert point, and delete point. So right here, I've got a water valve, and in my notes, I've got this water line. So I want to extend this water line all the way over to my water valve. There was a note in my note. There was a note in my field notes that said extend a water valve. For some reason, they couldn't shoot it in the field. So I've got a line, a water line running this direction. So I've got my start code over here. My points are incrementing as I'm going up. And then I want to tie it to this. So I've got the option to append. Append means it will add it to the end of the line. So should work. Let's try it. Locate my point. Let me get out of the selection. Append, locate my linear feature, locate my point feature, accept or reject. And notice it took that water valve and converted it to a WTL1, which is what these other points were. So that's really not what I want to do. I'm going to get out of that and undo it. So the best way to handle a scenario like this is to create a new point. I'm going to go ahead and create a new point on this. And notice it's asking me to locate my field book. I can select anything that's in my field book, give it a field code. So that is a WTL1. I want to give it the same field code as what I'm adding it to. Point name, WTL1. I just like to add it, name it that way. You can name it whatever you want, really, for the point name. And then I've got my box pop up here. It's asking me, do I want to make this a control point? I do not. And I can use my right or left arrows and set my terrain model attribute. So I can use my up and down arrows to go through those. So I want to set it to determine by feature definition. And once I've got that set, I can hover over this and try and make it pop up with an elevation here. Wasn't working, but it should have. And I'm going to reset out of that. And I just added that new point to that line, and I kept my water valve. So I'm going to go see what it did to that elevation. Edit those point features. So here's my WTL. Yeah, so it kept the same elevation. So what it will typically do is it will, sorry, jumped out of that. It will pop up with a yellow dialog that shows you the elevation it's going to snap to, but it was not doing that. So that's how you would add a point to that line. And I don't know why it keeps doing this. Okay. Go back to my edit tools. So what if I wanted to insert a point into a line? And I can do this on, I can do it on my dynamic link features. So this is a generated by link codes feature. And let me find a good example here of this. I want to insert a point. There was a riser over here. Maybe I wanted to insert a point on that riser. So this line comes up here and then goes back that way. So I can get out of that, turn off my water because they're getting in the way. Locate my point feature. Notice it gives me a display of what it's going to do. So I can then add that in there that way. So let me, so I'm finished editing with this file. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. So I'm going to, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, I'm going to export it to a Bentley survey format. I'm going to save it. Notice it saves it as a TO2 SQLite. Save. And I'm going to create a new file. I want to get to doing a drainage study and how to handle that. Because we'll use this move along command a lot there. So let me open a new file because I got a new topo file that's been brought in. So let me browse for that. T24. Go ahead and open it. So I'm going to create a new field book. Notice I have no data in here, and I'm going to import my Infinity CSV file. Again, I can go in and delete my control. I can delete any backside checks I've got. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn them off. Turn off my confidence points. So I've got some drainage items here. So in the field, maybe they didn't shoot the pipes. Maybe they do a little diagram. So how do you go about adding those pipes into your data? So the easiest way to do it is to create a new point. Again, it's asking me to locate my field book. And I'm going to call this, I know that it's a CMP, so I'm going to call it a CMP 50 for my field code. CMP 50 add, and this is just the name that I like to use. You can use whatever works for you. And I'm going to snap it to this inlet. And then I'm going to snap the other end of this pipe into this other inlet. I'm going to reset to get out of that. And then I'm going to add a start code to this first point. So I've now just added a CMP between these 2 points. I'm also going to do the same thing from here to here, and things get a little convoluted when you start snapping to the center of these inlets and manholes, and you got multiple pipes coming in. So one of the tools you can use for that is this move along command. So I can locate my linear feature, left click on it, locate my point feature that I want to move. It's that one. Notice the elevation is changing as I move along that. So I can select true to hold that end elevation and move it over away from the center of that inlet. I can do the same thing over on this side. Locate my point feature, holding the elevation, move it over that way. So now I can go and add my other pipe in here. So I'm going to add a new point. Locate my field book, give it a field code. This one I'm going to call CMP 51 for the next line. Snap into that one, snap into that one. Add elevation, right click to get out. Again, I can go and put a start code on this one. Creates that line, and then I can use that move along command to move that point away from the center of that inlet. Making sure my hold elevation is set. Do the same thing over here. So now with those in there, at elevation from the inlet, a lot of times you'll go measure down from the grate of the inlet to get the flow line or that invert elevation. I can then edit these point features very easily using the edit or the survey details. So on this first point, let's say they had a measure down of 50 feet or 3 feet. Can right click on it, edit selected items, go to elevation. I can just type in a -3 feet, hit enter, and it automatically pulled that elevation down. 119,367, 116,367. So it's 3.5, apply, and it automatically applies that. So I don't know how many people are doing drainage studies this way. I know that was a big thing we did up in Region 1 is we didn't actually shoot the pipes. We would just make diagrams of them, measure down flow lines, and then modify it all in the office. So I can do the same thing on this one. Let me edit those point features. Oh, elevation -3.5. Enter. Go into the next one over there. And it pulls it down. So point renaming tool we didn't talk about. I will say try to avoid using the point renaming tool. So if you bring in 2 different files that have similar points, we have found that it randomly drops linking codes from lines. So you can use it with caution or not at all. Your best option is to rename in Infinity or Excel prior to importing into the survey fieldbook. And I would recommend using a point and file tracking spreadsheet if you don't already, to keep up with multiple files or crews on the same job. And if you need a good one, I think I've got a pretty good one that I can distribute that we used to use up in Region 1. I don't think they would mind. So reach out to me and let me know if you'd like to see that. Drainage studies, I just kind of talked about that real quickly. And then modifying terrain boundaries, I do not have time to get into that. We will talk about that next week. So let me real quickly show you what I would do with this if there's no other questions. If you do have questions, please speak up. I'll take up the next 3 minutes if you do not. But I can export this to a T24 or to a Bentley survey format. So I'm going to save it in that same file, save. So I'm going to go create a all are merged. And I don't know if I went ahead and created this. I did not. So let me create a new file here for merging all of these together. So I've edited all of my topo files. I've got individual SQLite files for each topo file, and I want to merge them all together. So how do I do that? So I'm going to say we're working in project-wise. We're not through the demo, but I'm going to try and name this correctly. And save that. Can create a new field book. And I'm going to import these SQLite files using my right-click import Bentley survey format. I have some edited ones. I can import this. So notice this one has all my edits that I've done in it. Going to import another one. Go through all of these. Just want to show you something that's going to happen here as we work through this. Maybe duplicating some of these. Let me check. No, not yet. So I'm slowly building this together. So notice this is that point renaming tool, and I've got a duplicate linear feature found. So I have the option tab and the differences tab. So I can see where my existing ditch one is. And I can see what I'm trying to import. And one of these is generated by point list. One of these is generated by link codes. So I can use, for this, I can, this is where I say use it cautiously. So I can add maybe a suffix to this one of, I think I'm doing T31 and apply. And then I got a break line that's also doing the same thing. I'm going to turn off that counter, apply, another break line, apply. But notice what happens is I've got these lines that connected up among different field books because they have similar field codes on them. So there's a bunch of BL1s in different files. So that's why you need to use those end codes on the end of your line. So I can quickly fix this by just going to this and adding an end code. Again, if you did this straight from Infinity, this wouldn't happen. Here's another one. I got my start code coming around there. The line ends right here. So I can very quickly go in there and add an end to that. I got that one going through there. I'm going to go ahead and import this last one, last two. So I've got all my data in here. I would need to go fix a couple of these. Any questions? I could then import my point cloud mapping that was done in a different file. And I've exported, I brought that into my survey fieldbook in a different file. I've exported that as an SQLite. I can then just right click and import that in and merge it all together in this file. So it's all pretty seamless. Again, making sure I get those ends on that. Okay. So I was hoping to get a little more in here. One thing I didn't touch on was graphic features. So I can do that real fast. Let's say I wanted to add some striping in here. I don't have my point cloud handy, but if I want to add a graphic feature, I can go to my ORD Survey menu, grab some striping, triangulate. Let's say it's a solid, double solid narrow. Gonna connect it up on here. Again, I would be snapping to the point cloud if I were doing this. So to import that from graphics, I can right click on this Fieldbook, import features from current graphics. It's going to think for a second on the first one. And because I use this ORD Survey menu, it assigns the correct template and level, color, line, style, and weight attributes to it. So I've now input this graphical feature. Notice my creation type is graphic. And I can, let me show you where this is at in the survey details. So I have no point features for yellow, double, narrow, or YDN, but I do have a linear feature. And I can find it in here. Double, solid, narrow is what it is. But notice I cannot right click on or bring up my context sensitive menu, get my points to that or anything like that, like I can with dynamic link or pointless features. All right, so I went 5 minutes over, and I still have a lot to cover. So we will hit it next week. Well, hopefully this helps you with editing some of these. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you run into issues, we can certainly help you. And we will continue this next week, getting into the terrains, and I'll try and have I've got one all edited, but we'll jump into dealing with the terrains and the terrain boundaries. So thank you all.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.